Welcome back to Awaken Exchanges. I'm your host, Jay Rich, and I want to thank you all for joining me back here after this insanely long absence. It's been almost a year and a half since I last dropped a podcast, and that was in April of 2023, right before the Portal to Ascension conference in San Diego, which I think that's where we're going to start at. But before I get there, I just wanted to say thank you again for being here with me and listening to the podcast and exchanging your ideas and information with me as we navigate this world together. It has been a crazy year and a half, and it's going to take a couple episodes to catch you guys back up. But I do hope to make this at least a much more regular thing again. I miss all you guys, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing what's been going on in your lives as well. So April of 2023, let's go ahead and start there. We went to San Diego, the Portal to Ascension conference. I had released a bunch of podcasts, a series of them before then, interviewing some interesting people. I was not the best interviewer, I know. I'm still working on all of that. I was just fascinated to talk with some interesting people. That said, while I was down at the conference in San Diego, that was with my partner, Krista, by the way, who you guys will meet on here in the next few episodes, most likely. It was our first big trip together. We went there, and the conference was interesting. Wide variety of people. There were some very interesting speakers and topics that were coming about. One of the people that I had interviewed, Ra of Earth, he was a genuinely awesome individual. I was very happy to meet him. And hi, Miss Shadow. As you guys know, Shadow likes to come over and join us, and Henry may show up as well. I'm not going to edit her out of the video, but I'm going to try and keep her on her own path. Go ahead, kitten. Where was I? Ra of Earth. Ra was very genuine, probably still is. He seems like he's still out there doing his thing and doing good by people. And I really appreciated our talk that we had and being able to communicate with somebody like him. He was very generous with his time and talked with Krista and I as we were going through. There was a lot going on with the conference and some people that were different. We had a very good time, but there was definitely a lot of energy that we weren't used to in that space. It was amplified by an acid trip on, I think, our first day at the conference that definitely gave a different vibe. You could feel everybody there. She sent me and her friend a wonderful message from the car that I wish I could share with you guys, but maybe one of these days. But basically, April started off really well. We had a great trip. We got back from San Diego, and that's actually when I decided to move in with Krista. In May, we had combined our households. I moved out of the townhouse that I'm back in right now. That we're back in right now, I should qualify that with, and into her condo. After that, ended up getting some really horrible tenants that lived here. They trashed the place. They were horrible to my neighbors. They were months and months behind on rent. Eventually caught up, but not before. That was tens of thousands of dollars that I didn't get to put into other avenues. So it derailed almost an entire year for me just dealing with the tenants. But that's kind of like the least of the worries from the year. Moving in with Krista was great. Mr. Henry and Shadow are getting along great. But it's about that same time that my dad, Keith, started getting called into the hospital. His lungs had gotten bad enough that they had decided to go ahead and put him on the transplant list. We got 4 calls to go up there. I think starting in June or July. I think June was the first call. And basically you were on call 24/7 after that point. You didn't know what was going to go on. You didn't know if he was going to go to the hospital. You didn't know how long he was going to be up there. And you had to be able to be there quickly. So we started changing how we were living. But we still tried to get out, have fun. Krista and I went to Vegas, in July, might have been June, for her friend's wedding renewal. Their anniversary and renewal was down there, and we spent a few days, took our first road trip together. Great road trip. I'm going to go ahead and let the plane go through. Sorry about the plane noise if that showed up there. That said, on that Vegas trip, it was our great vacation. It was our first road trip and one of our first vacations minus the San Diego. But my phone got stolen. We were playing roulette, and I was distracted enough that somebody just swiped it right off me. So that was an interesting thing to deal with, having to find a new phone, get all my contacts back, trying to deal with all that while also knowing that my dad could get called into the hospital at any moment and I might have to jump on a plane. He didn't. But we got back from Vegas. We were living in the condo together, and on the fourth call into the hospital, which would have been in end of August, I believe. Yeah. Keith ended up starting what became the transplant from hell. He was the longest lived person with the condition he was diagnosed with. At the time he was diagnosed in 2000, average life expectancy was 2 to 3 years. We didn't really expect that to be his case, but we had to fight it the whole time. He had the best doctor in the country up in Seattle, and we just made sure that he was close enough we could get up there and do it. He made it over 20 years with this, and slowly but surely his lungs did decline, and even though they declined much, much slower than everybody else did with this condition, they were still declining, and his health was not what it needed to be. He was as strong as he could be for where he was. Keith fought very hard to keep himself healthier than 95% of the people that go in for a transplant. His doctors loved everything about what he did, what my mom did to keep him going. She basically was full-time worker and, care provider for a long time. After he got called in, they decided this was the time that they were going to do the lungs. They took him in for the transplant. He got out, and they didn't know why he was still bleeding. Our nurse that was on staff, I really wish I could say thank you again to Yarrow. She was the one who insisted that the doctors come back in and figure out what was going on. And unfortunately, they had to take him back down for a second surgery that night. And we believe in that process, they also punctured both of his new lungs. One hole looked like it was going to heal, and the other one also showed promise at points. But they didn't. They declined slowly, and his struggle to even breathe on his own was very hard to watch. My mom and I spent nearly, 6 weeks in the hospital with him. As he declined and got worse, he had to go through another surgery, hoping that they would be able to use some muscle from his back to close the hole on the bad hole, and it seemed to work briefly. Unfortunately, it didn't heal well, and another hole on the other hole in his other lung ended up getting exacerbated because it was now the source of the leak. It's still very hard for me to talk about. But in the end, he had to choose to pull his own plug. And we got very lucky that he had a very lucid day that day. In fact, that would be on October 8th. That would be the anniversary today as I release this, not as I record. I'm recording on the 6th. The 8th's already going to be hard enough, but I wanted to actually get this out there for the anniversary of his death. I've never seen somebody who was so strong and so at ease with the decision he had to make for himself. Unfortunately, as much as it was a screw up at the hospital, you're signing on for that when you go in for a transplant, and there's nothing that we could do about it. My mom is now just stuck without her partner of more than 25 years of marriage, more than 30 years together, and basically my whole life. Good place to let the plane go by. Unfortunately, because family medical leave only covers you while the person is living, even though I had 3 months of medical leave, I'd only got to take about 3 weeks of it before Keith passed, having tried to work remote and go back and forth. Unfortunately, that meant that I think my mom got a little bit more of a break just because she had some saved up, but I had to go back to work right away. I really didn't get to deal with it back then. I still have waves of grief that overpower me and remind me that he's not here and that he did everything right and he should be here. It's a hard thing, but loss has been a part of my life for quite a long time. So I just tried to deal with it. Suck it up, get back to work. I'm still at Tasty's, still head of R&D. Tasty's Edibles in Oregon. Buy them, please. They're good. We don't have the best sales marketing team at this point. We're just working on. We are still one of the biggest companies in Oregon, but with the market flooded the way it is, I could see that this was still just more of a job. It didn't fulfill my soul. It didn't make me feel security for the future. It just paid the bills. Still pays the bills. So while I'm still working, I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about what's going on. I am now in my psilocybin facilitator training class. I will probably finish that up this month. And with that, I'm going to start helping people heal, take their own journeys. I'm going to focus on PTSD, near death, doula kinds of experiences, hospice care, those kinds of things. People who can really benefit from realizing that there's more to this world than what we are on this plane. Right now, I'm only really up to October, and I hadn't planned on talking about much more than that because it was a lot to deal with. But in October of last year, after Keith died, we had to come back here to the reality of life. We had to start moving on with our own lives and knowing that he didn't want us to not live. He wanted to be here with us. He would still want to be here with us, and he would still want us to be living our lives. So that is what my mom and I continue to try and do. Fortunately for me, Krista has been there as a partner beyond words. And our time together has getting better and better. As I'm recording this, I realize I could continue on between October and April. There's a big set of stuff for us. So let's see how much of that I can get through real quick. Dealing with having to be back at work with Keith's death, and we were still fairly trying to settle into a small place for the two of us and 2 cats. And just not quite room. Still dealing with the horrible tenants. Still dealing with the property management people who called twice while my father was on his deathbed after I told them not to be calling again. I mean, it's just like, why would you interrupt somebody at a time like this when you were still not even doing what I'd asked you to do with the tenants that they had recommended, that they had put into my house, and that unfortunately I had no recourse on by that point. I couldn't get them evicted despite my attempts because the property management people wouldn't follow through on it. They wouldn't even give them the opportunity to avoid eviction and take the move on their own. So we got stuck with them until March, actually. February is when they finally agreed to leave. March was when they left. So we have the holidays together. November, first Thanksgiving without Keith wasn't one I really did much with the family. Mom hasn't been keen on a lot of the holidays since. Christmas, we had a small gathering with my mom and Krista and I. Did a few little things there, shared dinner, and had a good meal and day before going down to her parents. And from her parents, we spent our time down there. Got to, talk with the family more, get to kind of get more involved and figure out where things stood with everybody. Very good family. They could also use some psilocybin facilitation help, in my opinion. I think that a lot of people could, but being able to be open, honest, and communicate with people is the main reason why I want to help with facilitation. I think that most of the problems in life come from people who think they know what somebody is talking about and don't. One little misunderstanding, a difference in my definition of a word versus your definition of a word, anything. I mean, non-native speakers to native speakers to everything is just hard with communication. If it's not done intentionally and without deception, then you get misunderstandings, you get hurt feelings, you get people hiding and bottling themselves up inside. I've spent a number of years, not always successfully, but a number of years trying to live my life completely honestly. Confronting any hard situation as it happens, and just head on dealing with things so that there aren't those regrets, those what ifs, those things that I didn't get to say to Keith, those conversations that we never got to have because he never got to use his voice again after he went into surgery. Having to try and read his lips because he was too weak to write. Trying to get that understanding from his mind to ours so that we could help with whatever way we could. And that's when I realized how much communication means between everybody. This situation with the tenants ended in March. We start cleaning my house out again. We're starting to think about selling it, the townhouse. As we come to that, we're deciding, well, we've got a road trip that we've planned for quite a while because, as some of you know, on my birthday this year, April 2024, there was an eclipse in Texas. Well, an eclipse across the world, but we decided to road trip to Texas, hoping that we would have the best chance for clear weather, good skies in the U.S., and be able to see a phenomenon I missed out on when it passed in 2017 here in Oregon, because I happened to still be living in Washington under probation restrictions, and therefore I could not leave to go travel to Totality. We went to the Eclipse Festival. They oversold by so much that we were parked almost 3 miles away from the actual camp, or from the festival where our camp was. So the back and forth 6 miles every time we wanted to go into the camp was a very interesting way to go, but we had a blast. There was an amazing experience. The drone show that they put on the night before the eclipse was unparalleled in my life. In fact, I might try and post up a video of that here with this if I think to. But the big thing was the eclipse. And the day of the eclipse, that morning, we were already starting to pack up because we wanted to get on the road basically right after the eclipse because we knew a bunch of people were and we didn't want to get stuck in traffic. Unfortunately, they started getting thunderstorm warnings, and after somebody had not cooperated with the police, the cops in the county decided to shut down the entire festival, send everybody out. So we knew that there was going to be a mass panic. So we decided to go ahead and get our stuff in the car as quick as we could. And we actually got on the road before the eclipse, drove to a little town called Llano, Texas. And we got ourselves a couple of shirts, had Subway, and went to the park and waited for the eclipse. What Krista didn't know at the time was that I was kind of using that trip and how we traveled together to see whether or not we were compatible forever. I wanted to make her my partner for life, but I wasn't sure until then. Having had such an amazing trip together, we got to watch the eclipse, which was fantastic. We actually bought binoculars at a pawn shop on our way down, so that when we actually looked up through the binoculars, you could see the little Bailey's beads, these bright red dots shining through the craters or canyons in the moon. Phenomenal to even know what that was. It was amazing. And as it ends, she turned around to find me on my knee with a ring. She said yes. She seems to be happy about it still, but we'll see. We had a great road trip home, and let's see. That was April. We start thinking a little bit more about things, and we're debating between, do we sell her condo because we can't rent it? Do we try and get new tenants in my place, or do we just sell it? We've, as all of you that have been listening for a while know, the goal has always been to have property. She shares that goal with me. We want to have property where we can have a real community. It's going to start as a healing center. Where it goes from there, just going to depend. We'll see where it goes. But that healing center is going to start with psilocybin, massage, spa services, all the retreat services, getting away from the city so you can reground yourself into this life, into what really matters before whatever happens with this insane election and the rest of our country. We can still remember that we are part of this as a whole. Each of us are connected, and that's the goal we decided to work on. So we started putting our efforts towards that. Unfortunately, in June 3rd, I'm pretty sure it was the 2nd that I got the phone call. I found out that my biological father was in the hospital. June 2nd, we get the call. I know that there's a conversation that I've been trying to have with him for 30 years. So I don't know what to do. Krista encourages me, and so we decide to take the trip up to Olympia, only to find him incapacitated on his deathbed, unable to speak, barely able to say yes, scared for his life, scared for his death. I also happened to meet a brother, my half-brother Patrick, who's 25, now possibly 26, since I'm not sure when his birthday is yet. But that kid is the only one of the children my father had, my biological father, that actually got to be raised in that family. My half-brothers, as some of you who have listened to the intro and other things know, never really got along with me. They blamed me for our other half-brother's death, or one of them did. One of them just wanted to keep the peace and knew that it wasn't us that caused any of this, and that the complications of our family dynamics didn't come from us. It came from our father. It came from the situations that none of us could control. So I got to talk to Patrick for the first time. I had another father that I could not have the conversations I needed to have with. Somebody who I would never be able to speak my mind to freely. I'd never be able to hear his answers, his reasons, the whys. And so, knowing that it was now a matter of time for him, I talked to him. I told him how lucky my mom and I were to have Keith in our lives, how grateful I was that I had a father that stepped up when he didn't. But I also told him that he didn't have anything that he had to hold on to from me. He didn't have to hold any regrets. He didn't have to hold any of this stuff. My life was my life. And I have to be able to let him go. And his responsibility, what there was of it, he was also a kid. When I realize all of us adults are just kids, we are people who are trying to learn, trying to do our best, and we are stuck with the situations we have grown up in and been born into. I knew that he had that struggle for himself. So I forgave him. And I told him that. And then I explained to him the dreams, the visions he was having, the things he was scared about, the things that he was confronting. I told him about Bardo. I told him about the Buddhist ideal, and that it was basically Maya, illusion, confronting him with all of his regrets, all of his downfall. And that's why he was so scared, because he was being confronted by his life. But that those were just images, that was an illusion, that life has happened, but that they cannot hurt him anymore. That he had to make the most peace that he could with his situation before he died, because that's all that he had left. I got a thank you, which was actually very difficult. Grateful to hear, but very difficult for me also. Within a couple of hours of us leaving, and the time that Patrick had gone to go get his mom and bring her to go see Bill, he passed. He died on June 3rd. That was also the day that his son died, 31 years before. And hold on a second here, because you might meet Mr. Henry. Okay, I'm back. Well, we're back. As you can see, this purring Siamese is Mr. Henry. He's our 17-year-old kitten, and he is killing it these days with his arthritis shot. He is running up the stairs. He's gaining muscle back in his legs. He's just such a healthy kitten. All right, 17's probably not a kitten, but he's a very healthy gato. He's also very happy, and when his mom's gone, he definitely likes to be a lap cat. So, I'm going to go ahead and let him be here while I finish this with you guys. He also probably knows that things are hard, so I might as well have a companion while I talk. But after Bill died, again, 31 years, I believe, to the day that my brother died, and probably, I'm pretty sure my brother's funeral was the last time that I saw my father before I saw him on his deathbed. My bio dad, my father, my dad. I'm very grateful that we got to have our conversations, that we got to have some getting back to good after the bad that came with my ex, who I will not name. I was very grateful that he saw how much I loved him and appreciated him and my mom, despite that we had grown a little bit farther apart up until the last couple of years where we had to try and get back together. After Bill passed in June, we just didn't really know what to do. We both knew we wanted to take steps, and we weighed out the options, and that's when we decided that selling her condo means that we have more equity, and that we can then use that to buy our land right away and get moving forward on our goals for life. So we decided to empty out the condo, fix the few things that needed fixed in there, and move everything back to the townhouse. And now that we're here, we've been here about a month. We just got back from a trip to Hawaii, my 49th state. Interesting trip. Mostly good. Family dynamic issues on some things, but you know how that works. But getting to travel together, getting to be there. Krista and I have had a year and a half. It'll be 2 years next month, actually, that we've been together. And most of that time, we've been dealing with situations. We've been dealing with problems. We've been dealing with life, karma, everything that the world wanted to throw at us. And so we did. We dealt with it. We worked on it together. And now we have what we call Reconnection Friday. And we both have our Fridays off right now. So we take our little trip together. We choose our dosage. We choose our intention. And we have our day. Bringing back our closeness each week, elevating our energy to new highs, and then sustaining that and getting us back through the week of frustrations that come with work and life and money. And now, as we work towards our land, as we work towards our future, the podcast has become a focal point again. Now, this is obviously not an exchange except for between you and I, but there will be more exchanges on here. I'm going to be doing more talking with people who are healing. I'm going to be doing interviews with people who are taking journeys, with coaches, with people who are helping the rest of the world find their place, their calling, their purpose, to do something with my soul that instead of makes me feel drained every day, actually makes me feel like I'm making a difference. So the focus of the podcast is going to switch a little bit. I'm still going to put on whatever I find interesting, and I'm going to talk to whoever I want to talk to. That's just kind of how it is. But I do, since I'm talking to a lot more people who are focused on healing, the podcast is going to focus on healing. There's going to be more conversations about psychedelic journeys. There's going to be more conversations about what fills your soul. There's going to be more conversations about where we are headed with our society, with where we can go by building community, and with a hope that I get to talk with more of you, that some of you are interested in all of this too, and that maybe, just maybe, we can all help each other heal just a little bit more. I think that that's about all I've got for the day. We're about a half hour in, and actually, it's a little bit briefer of a version than I was going to do over a multi-part episode, but I think that really explains why the last year and a half I haven't necessarily been podcasting. Full-time work already made it difficult enough, but full-time work and all of those changes, that death, those deaths, everything. Let's just put a little bit of a twist to how I was doing life. But as you may or may not remember, this podcast was started Sober October 2020, right during the pandemic. And here we are, 4 years later. I haven't smoked weed in about a week now. And basically going through another Sober October for cannabis. However, with the mushrooms and acid and other healing psychedelics, I believe that those are tools that we can all use for therapy, for growth, for opening up our eyes and seeing what's really around us. So I guess that's it for today anyway. This is going to release on October 8th, and with that, I want to say I love you, Keith. I miss you. I know that you still look down on Mom and I. You're still by our sides. You're still making sure that we're still living our lives. And so with that, I'm going to try and live my life a little bit more fully for the life I wish you could be leading here with us. I'm going to return to the podcasting world with you guys. I'm going to finish my psilocybin facilitator training. We've also got some very interesting 3D printing stuff going on as a side project and business. If you're interested, give me a holler. The future is looking bright. And even if that's the country's future is as uncertain as ever, I'm going to avoid politics because I am just thoroughly disappointed in everything. I was actually going to start podcasting again and talk about RFK when he first started up. I thought maybe he could be like his dad and his uncle and make a change for us. And then I was a little disillusioned when he went to Trump because the man's a admitted sex offender who has no consequences to his actions. Has millions and billions and continues to work and do things that I don't agree with for our country. And maybe he does some things that I do. I don't know, because all I know is all the bad that I hear. And him as a person, I just can't get behind. Kamala, I can't even talk about her record as a prosecutor. They just avoided that completely in the one debate that we're going to get to see. I don't think she is the answer for our country either. So what does that leave us with? And I don't know. I think it leaves us with needing to rely more on our local communities. So I hope you do. And I hope that we can get together and all of us start building the community that we wish we had all of our lives. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you didn't mind listening to my ramble because I came in with very little preparation, just wanting to speak the truth from my mind of what has been going on since you last heard from us. I thank you again for joining us and hope that you're here next week or the week after, as it may be a couple before I get to release again. But as we start these exchanges, I hope that you feel free to email me. Again, that's John or Jay at Awakened Exchanges, or go to the website, which will be updated as we start working on the psilocybin process and everything, and contact us there. We are around. We want to know how we can help. Here you go, buddy. Here you go, buddy. We want to know how we can make your lives better, how we can help you thrive in this world, how you can heal. What is holding you back? What is stopping you from following your dreams? None of us should be stopped anymore. We should be following our dreams, following our hearts, and making sure that we're men and women of our words. Your words mean something. They are valuable. They are all we have. So have some integrity. Be forthright with those around you. And let's build the community we've always wanted. Thank you. Of course, there was one more playing as I was trying to end this, but thank you again for joining us, and I hope to see you all back here, and I hope you have a blessed day.